Hello, San Francisco, and welcome once again to the Angelic Troublemakers. I'm your host, Alan Jones. And on today's program, guess who is being spoiled rotten? I am coming to you today with this program, Guess Who's Being Spoiled Rotten, based on a piece of legislation that's going through the California legislature. It's called Senate Bill 219. It, according to the record here, it has passed the Assembly on September 12th and passed in the Senate on September 13th. Its sponsor, former San Francisco supervisor Scott Wiener, who is now our elected state senator in District 11. If I could scroll down to what this bill does, it's basically it says long-term care facilities, rights of residence. However, it's somewhat of a Bill of Rights for the LGBT community, in particular, transgenders who are aging and a lot of them will end up in nursing homes. And before I get going on getting back to this, I don't know who is going to believe me, but I have absolutely nothing against the transgender community anywhere. I do have a fault of transgenders, and it's based on personal experience. I used to live in Portland, Oregon, 2 years. I'm a San Francisco guy, but I used to live in Portland, Oregon, and I was in downtown Portland. And it was late at night, and the area in which I was, I admit, I think I was 25 years old. I was selling drugs. And in this area where I was, there was a lot of prostitution. And so some sailors had come into town and they were looking to find some women. And what they happened on was a few transgender. Now, transvestite, transgender, I don't know, but they were men dressed up as women, or some who have actually made the transition. But they were, I guess at the time in the 80s, I think it was 81, they were described as transsexuals. But they fooled, apparently, some of these sailors. Now, I don't know to what degree. What had happened was there was this park, and they lured them into the park, and these sailors were running in there after them, meaning see if they couldn't get some from them. And one of the sailors who was held back, I had said to him, I think you better go get your friends, because those women they went after are men. And the fact that he dashed on in there, I don't know what happened. But throughout my life, I have witnessed time and time again where transgenders are playing a game, and it's a dangerous game that's costing them their lives. and nobody is putting them in check on this. The fact that they are wanting men to think of them basically in the, far as transition from male to female, they want these men to not be able to detect that they are actually men transitioned into women. Well, that's a hard one for me to swallow. When I say that I don't have anything against them, I don't like to be played for a fool, and I don't blame it anybody who does not like to be played for a fool. This issue is not being addressed. Everybody is feeling so sorry for the transgender community, and quite frankly, hey, they got my sympathy and empathy. However, I draw the line when they try and trick people into, sexual favors and end up dead in many cases. And then the unsuspecting gets a murder charge. That's not right. But where I come in with my who is being spoiled rotten, well, I could say the whole LGBT community of San Francisco, but I'm really annoyed by this piece of legislation, Senate Bill 219, because if you look at it, now you won't be able to read it from where I'm going to highlight, but the fact that what I'm going to read to you is what this bill actually says. This bill would enact the Lesbian, Gay, Bisexual, and Transgender Long-Term Care Facility Residents Bill of Rights. Among other things, the bill would make it unlawful, except as specified, for any long-term care facility to take specified actions wholly or partly on the basis of a person's actual or perceived sexual orientation, gender identity, gender expression, or human immune deficiency virus, including, among others, willful and repeated failing to use a resident's preferred name or pronouns after being clearly informed of the preferred name or pronouns. Now, I'm going to stop right there. What I just read to you, it says the word unlawful right here. It says that the bill would make it unlawful for a person to call a transgender by their birth sex if they prefer to be called by their transition sex. To make a law for this? Give me a break. This is not helping people. To criminalize, even if it's not a jail thing, it may be an infraction. From what I understand, Scott Wiener has says it is ridiculous for somebody to jump over the fence and think that his bill is suggesting that people go to jail for not addressing transgenders the way they want to be. But you read the piece yourself. It says unlawful. Now, we all know what unlawful means. And we all know what a pronoun is. Well, most of us. So, if this bill is going to do what Senator Scott Wiener wants it to do, it will make it a misdemeanor offense. Now, I just can't wrap my head around it. But let's go somewhere else. Bay Area reporter. I'm going to tell you a rather interesting story. In late 2015, this article, San Francisco public defender apologizes for attorney's comment on trans victim. Well, I'm going to tell you an unbelievable story. And this unbelievable story involves this apology. Now, stick with me for a little bit. Let me switch screens here. And I'm going to use this first picture. The black man, his name is Dwayne Kemp, and that is his wife. And they were walking on the streets of 8th between Mission and Market. And this man was just walking up the street when this person is a transgender who goes by the name Samantha Halsey. Samantha Halsey was walking up the street, and walking up the street, she, with a companion, bumped into Dwayne Kemp and his lady. As they were walking up, they just left a restaurant and they were just walking up the street. And so what Ms. Halsey did when she bumped him and moved on past irritated Dwayne Kemp to the point that Dwayne Kemp said, man, people just bump into you and don't say, excuse me. So what did Samantha Halsey reply? Get out of my city, you nigger. Now, after that, if I could go back, the young lady here threw a cup of coffee at Halsey because she called her man a nigger. Then Halsey punched the woman. And then Dwayne Kemp started wailing on Halsey. Well, the police were called. The police were called, and the whole thing, people took interviews of what happened. And it's hard to make up something right on the spot when you're being questioned by the police. The police immediately arrested Dwayne Kemp and his girlfriend or wife. Now, here's the sad part. In the police report, and do understand, when the police want to try and figure out what happened, the first thing that they do is they separate people. And they ask each person their side of the story. Dwayne Kemp said Halsey bumped him, and he replied something, and she turned around and used the word nigger in addressing him. His girlfriend threw some coffee on her, and that's how the fight started. But they only arrested Kemp. Well, he did, both of them, Kemp and his lady did hit Halsey. Well, I agree that there's, they did commit a crime. However, this took a real bad turn. A simple battery or assault turned into a felony hate crime. Now, I can't understand how it is that you're going to call somebody a nigger and then they get to fighting and you are the one charged with a hate crime. Dwayne Kemp admitted he did use the word faggot when this whole altercation went on. But this is not right. Let me proceed back to this. In the preliminary hearing, the attorney for Kemp called Halsey a man. And so the whole LGBT community got a hold of it, and they couldn't stand the fact that a professional city employee called this transgender a man when she wants to be known as a woman. Well, Jeff Adachi apologized. Well, now, Jeff Adachi apologized for what one of his lawyers, deputy public defenders, did. And I can understand, well, if you want to be called a certain name and somebody calls you something else, well, okay, I get it. However, this is not right. And this is showing how the transgender community is being spoiled rotten. Now, I have to interject the fact that I, as you can see, am a black man, but I'm also a homosexual. And I'm also a person who has never been able to walk. Now, tying all of this together, I tell you, when I was 19 years old, someone was mad at me for something I did, and they said to me, and I quote, "Shut up, you crippled nigger faggot." Now, personally, I deserve the comment. Some may say, oh, no, you never deserve that. However, no way in the world would I want to go through the issue of changing a law to make it illegal, make it an unlawful offense for someone to call me a crippled nigger faggot. Is it cruel? Yes. Did it take me a long time to get over it? Yes. How did I handle it? I handled it the right way. No, I didn't go after the person. However, for Scott Wiener to resort to call to a bill that includes the language willfully and repeatedly, if a person's failing to use the resident's preferred name or pronoun, it's an unlawful offense. Well, wait a minute. We're taking this situation way too far. If a black man who is called a nigger, and you know how much fighting words that is, even when he admitted that he was in the wrong, how did it end up to being a felony? And let me tell you, he was convicted. Why was he convicted? Because the plea deal was, if you agree to a hate crime, he and his girlfriend or wife, I heard both, would be immediately released from jail. Now, it was close to Christmas, and they said, look, I don't want to be in jail at Christmas. I'm going to take the deal. Both of them one of them against the advice of his attorney. Dwayne Kemp said this is a raw deal. But the fact that a prosecutor in San Francisco saw a situation where he could get a hate crime conviction, did not care about the facts. What started it? What started it, even though it's not against the law for somebody to call another person a nigger, that's what started the fight. And for him to end up with a felony off of this particular incident, I think the transgender community is being spoiled rotten. And the evidence is even more clear when piece of legislation going through California legislature right now is making it unlawful for you to refer to somebody in a nursing home setting against the wishes of a person's repeated attempts. Why is that language even in there? Now, I'm all for treating everybody with respect. And if a transgender wants to be known as a woman when they were born a man and vice versa, you won't get me to argue. It is confusing enough of a subject for me. I don't want to add to the confusion. I know nothing about the subject. I barely know anything about homosexuality. So what I'm saying to you is understanding that we in this society and in San Francisco are stooping to the level that we want to pass a law to where people who are from the transgender community need to have a law to where they're addressed properly according to their wishes. I'm telling you, what are we trying to do? We're trying to spoil these people rotten. Sure, they deserve respect. Well, if a transgender is calling a black man, if a white transgender is calling a black man a nigger, doesn't that black man deserve respect too? So why then is, what's the saying? What's good for the goose is good for the gander? Why is Jeff Adachi apologizing for somebody who called a victim of a crime, if you will, a man when she prefers to be called a woman, and not take into the fact that hey, wait a minute. How did this start? Now, I want to also say that Samantha Halsey has said that she denies saying such to Dwayne Kemp. She denies calling him a nigger. Well, one other thing that people don't realize, when the preliminary hearing happened, the very same hearing where Jeff Adachi came out and was forced to apologize, Samantha Halsey was there to testify. Before they got to her to testify, she left on her own free will. They made the offer to Kemp, and Kemp did not know that Halsey had left. He would have never agreed to it, but they kept it from him. Why? She got cold feet. And she never came forth, but the motion was already in play, and Kemp didn't want to be in jail anymore, so he just took the deal. But when you really look at it, even though Samantha Halsey said that I didn't say that, look at the facts. When you're right in the heat of an argument and the police are quickly brought onto the scene and they get both sides of the story, it's fresh. And that is in the police report, that she said this. But when you really look at it, back up. Dwayne Kemp and his lady just came out of a restaurant and were walking up the street. Now, how many times have you decided that you are going to come out of a restaurant with your significant other, walk up the street, your lady has a cup of coffee, apparently she wants to finish drinking her coffee, and then you just see a transgender, and you decide, oh, and throw the coffee on the person, and then your man just says, you faggot. It don't make sense. It didn't happen that way. What happened was Samantha Halsey started this situation by first bumping into and not saying, excuse me. If she had said, excuse me, this wouldn't have happened. Because the fact that they used Kemp and his lady's prior criminal record to establish whether these people were guilty or prone to violence is irrelevant to this particular situation. But it was used against him. Well, hey, that happens sometimes. But the fact is we are spoiling a certain community rotten. But when we resort to the fact that no matter how small of a situation, we want to pass a law to protect them, this is not right. I myself have never been in favor of any hate crime laws. Why? Love has no law. Hate, you have to have laws. And most of the crimes committed are out of hate, revenge, all kinds of evil words. But I'm saying to you, we need to check ourselves if we are going to resort to such silly SB 2:19. God bless.